The line was exceptional.
I've had to train to get very, very proficient.
Gold medalist and Paralympic champion representing New Zealand.
You're always adjusting and adapting to conditions, and that's the thing that young players don't quite realise these days.
You're listening to the Hyundai High Performance Hour.
Good evening, welcome into the show. Yes, a high-scoring game of rugby in the ITM Cup tonight, but now it's time to turn our attention very much to rugby league. And the grand final in the NRL coming up this weekend, of course, Manly and the Roosters, and the newspapers, the radio networks, the television stations, the internet is just full of stories previewing the NRL grand final. Put yourself in the shoes or the boots of the players and try and appreciate what that might be like. It's not just a game of football. It is about how you deal with the week. It's about how you deal with the pressure, the expectation. And there's an old cliche that don't play the game before the game actually starts. And by that, some sports people can mentally be shot to bits before they even cross the white chalk, because they've gone over it so many times, because they haven't slept for 3 days, because they've done so many interviews, and they're just so wrung out that they can't perform. Well, we're going to talk to someone who's been there, done that in some major championship finals on both sides of the world in the sport of rugby league, including, of course, in the NRL. Winning that memorable 1999 grand final over St. George Illawarra. And that is Tawera Nikau, who joins myself and Jason Ryan, who's here with me in studio on the Hyundai High Performance Hour. Tawera, thank you very much for your time. I guess grand final week, you probably get a few of these phone calls, do you?
Yeah, certainly do, Andrew. It is, mate, a very exciting part of the week if you're in Sydney. And as you said earlier, Manly and the Roosters, two parochial sides. The Roosters from one side, from Bondi, obviously Manly across the bridge. Mate, it is fanatical. The build-up, the hype, the television, the radios, everything, it's unbelievable. It's a huge week in Sydney, and as you said, Andrew, it'll be interesting to see how some of the younger players, in particular one I'm very interested to see, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the Roosters, how he handles his first grand final. What a great and exciting time for the youngster.
Absolutely, and I'm really pleased that we've got you on the show, because not only have you won a grand final, and you've played in other championships and big matches, of course, around the world, in particular in the UK, but not only have you been there as a player, Tawera, but you've also worked post your playing days. You've worked in that sort of that training environment, haven't you? And I'm talking about business, about life, and about teaching some of those skills. Would it be fair to say that a lot of those skills you learned as a footballer that you can then apply in other aspects of life?
Yeah, I think that was a very good grounding, Andrew, in terms of, high-performance sport, performing at a high level week in and week out, having that consistency. But I suppose that understanding and explaining the NRL Grand Final, nothing else matters. New South Wales for this week, not the politicians, not any other news. It's every morning the radio stations, every morning the television stations. Tomorrow they have the grand final breakfast. Last night they had the Daily M Awards. There's presentations, dinners, everything on during the whole week. And if you aren't careful, that can take a lot out of you, Andrew.
So take us back to 99. Of course, there would have been huge excitement. In fact, just excitement anyway, because the Storm was only a couple of years old. What are your recollections of that lead into the grand final in 99?
Yeah, no, we were very fortunate, Andrew. At the time, we were based in Melbourne, obviously, but actually we flew up on the Thursday for the grand final. There was all some media commitments that were all completed on that day, and then we fly the grand final breakfast. I mean, we flew back that afternoon. So actually for us, it wasn't too bad. Because, as I said before, the hype. But the build-up, the whole week around there was a lot of hype in Melbourne. Obviously, the AFL Grand Final was played on the Saturday. We were playing on the Sunday in Sydney. And it was just before the Olympics. So I remember that quite distinctly, because the stadium they'd built for the Olympics in 2000, and we were the Grand Final in 1999. And there was a big fuss made over the biggest crowd. I think it was 108,000 people. because the maximum the stadium could hold was about 110 for the opening of the Olympics in 2000. So there was a massive hype in Sydney around the Dragons. And for us, we were pretty lucky. We flew up there for the grand final breakfast, did all the media commitments, and then we flew back that night. And we didn't fly back up till the day before, which was a Saturday. So in one sense, we're lucky because a lot of our players hadn't played final football, played in that atmosphere. So we were very lucky that we were based in Melbourne. But, for Manly, obviously, they're going into the game this week, and the Roosters, all the hype around Sonny Bill Williams. It just generates so much media interest.
Tawera, Jason Ryan here. Did you find all the sideshows that go with the grand final, did that detract from what you were trying to achieve at all?
Oh, probably being an older player, me and Glenn Lazarus were the older players in the team, so we'd had the experience of test matches and playing at Wembley and, I'd played in the finals with Cronulla for a couple of years previously, but not to the grand final. So we sort of had an understanding. For some of the younger guys, it was like, wow. And it's not until they go through their careers, and some of the guys never played in the grand final again. So, really soaking up that atmosphere and enjoying it, it could be a bit of a distraction. That's why I'll be interested to see. I know I was in Sydney a few weeks ago and talking to a couple of the players. Guys were really excited about the opportunity to actually get to play in the final, but more so, you've heard reports of some of the older players. Jared Warrior-Hargraves, I saw an article today where he was talking about how, he got carried away in the hype and was worrying about family and tickets and all this other stuff, and not the game. And not enjoying that occasion. So, you can get caught up in the hype, and it can be a distraction if you aren't totally focused.
So, it's interesting. You mentioned straight away that you and Glenn Lazarus, as older players, more experienced players, that you weren't as affected by it. But clearly that's not just an age thing. You must have learned ways to cope, ways to deal with it. So what was that? What did you do? Were you literally able to switch off and almost just get into a sort of autopilot type of a zone?
Yeah, well, when it comes to that time of the year, I think it's important, and if you go through the finals, we've seen some pretty exciting games over the last 3 or 4 weeks. It was really just, getting yourself, semi-final football and grand final football, it's a different kind of game. The stakes go up, the pressure goes up, everything else goes up. So as a professional over those years, you learned how to, I suppose, put all those other things that aren't relevant to you and focusing on what you specifically need to do. So your role specifically, what am I doing in the build-up, not to change too much, keeping that same routine. When grand final week comes around, it's crazy because people are ringing you, media's trying to get a hold of you, family's trying to get a hold of you. There's a whole lot of other distractions, and if you don't, being professional, having done that before, just really focusing on what you need to do in that process through the game.
And I imagine I've got a very close involvement with the Sky City Breakers, so I've seen that in a basketball sense, that coming up to a final series, suddenly everything ramps up. But in part, my job is actually to try and be that buffer between the players and all of those distractions. So did you have that team? Do you have the people around the team that in 1999 were protecting you from some of what was going on?
Yeah, no, we were very fortunate. We had a media manager. We had the guys that were around there. So, there was, once you'd done the commitments, bang, it was off limits. Guys could just chill out and relax and do what they had to do. So there is that, in part, there are those support networks around you, Andrew, to make sure that you can cope with it. But it is very difficult because everyone wants a piece of you, as I said. Doesn't matter who you are, especially if you're a young guy, especially if you're Sonny Bill Williams, and you look to your senior players within those teams, within the likes of Manly and Melbourne. I think over the last 7-8 years they've been in the finals, grand finals every year, something like that. So if you look at the quality of those players in Manly, and you look at some of their senior players, the likes of the Stewart guys, Brent Kite, Steve Matai, I think this is looking for his third grand final. So when you think about those guys, it's what can I take off them? What can I learn off them? Or what can they share with the group that's going to keep those other guys on their toes and making sure that they're focused on the role? And I think those guys, if you can't get excited and motivated when it comes to game day and grand final, you mightn't have a pulse. So, but it's just keeping a lid on it till game day.
Tawera, how did you prepare yourself for a grand final week? Did you treat it the same as any other regular season game, or was there different things or a different build-up that you would go through?
Yeah, that's a really good question because there's nothing else like grand final week and you can't treat it like another game. You try and go through your same process, your preparation, your focus, whatever your specific goals are, and just focus in on the game, trying to block out the crowd, family. So one of the good things was that, if you had family and friends at the start of the week, you'd organise their tickets and say, right, we might see you before the game, but if I don't, you know why. So it's really just putting all those other distractions, focusing on specifically what your role was during that week. And for the older guys, it was really just, talking to the younger blokes, making sure that they were focused, making sure they were focused on their tasks, what was required of them in their build-up to that week. But it is tough. It is exciting. It's a great week. The NRL 26 weeks, then the final series, and then you hear the grand final, the penultimate round, about who wants to go out there and play on the last day of the season. So, it is very tough. It's very exciting, but, it's not like any other week, and it's hard to treat it like that.
We're talking with Tawera Nikau, of course, Kiwis legend, and of course he could walk back into Melbourne and I'm sure is treated like a rugby league god over there as well for his efforts. He was largely credited with turning around that 1999 grand final. We'll continue to talk about how he copes and how players need to try and cope in the build-up to a grand final. And yes, we will get Tawera's thoughts on the way that this 2013 grand final might play out. If you've got a question for Tawera Nikau, text them through to 5009. Text through to 5009 if you have a question. And remember, if you'd like to be a winner, just go to our Facebook page. You can get there via the website hph.co.nz and like us. And there's a very simple question that you can answer to go into the draw for our weekly prize. Back in a moment with more from Tawera Nikau.
Friends of Football invite you to the John Adsett Tribute Evening. Don't miss the amazing night as John Adsett, ONZM, is roasted by a panel of speakers before the coach of the famous 82 All Whites replies in kind. An amazing night of football memories, full buffet dinner, charity auction and door prizes. Tables of 8 or individual tickets available. Don't miss this incredible night as we celebrate the career and contribution to the game of John Adsett. Friday, October 18 at the Auckland Grammar Old Boys Pavilion. Visit friendsoffootball.co.nz for information. Tickets selling fast.
The Sky City Breakers are about to start the 2013-14 NBL season, and they could create more history by winning a 4th title this season. The Sky City Breakers 32-page season guide is free when you purchase the New Zealand Herald on Friday. Included in the magazine are player and team profiles, a team poster, as well as interviews with some of the key players and the complete NBL season guide. All this and more free with the New Zealand Herald this Friday.
This Saturday, October the 5th, is the Stroke Foundation Blood Pressure Awareness Day. High blood pressure is a major risk factor for stroke, so we're giving free blood pressure tests at New World and Pack and Save supermarkets. You could have high blood pressure but not know it. So don't miss this opportunity for a free check at Pack and Save and New World. Find out what your blood pressure is and what it should be, then maintain regular checkups. Visit stroke.org.nz for locations.
Hi, Paul from Shawmount. Shawmount still have the best range of brackets and prices available in New Zealand. We simply cannot be beaten on the range and the pricing of LED, projector, plasma or LCD mounts. We've got brackets from 19-inch TVs through to 75-inch TVs in stock. Shawmount is a locally owned company. All advice on mounting your LED, plasma and projector is simply a phone call away. Shawmount.co.nz. Shawmount.co.nz. You can be sure if it's Shawmount.
The Hyundai High Performance Hour with Andrew Dewhurst. Proudly brought to you by Hyundai New Zealand.
It is 25 minutes away from 10 o'clock. We're talking the NRL Grand Final, but on the Hyundai High Performance Hour, we like to dig a little deeper than that, and we're talking about how players cope with the pressure, all of the add-ons, if you like, that go on in Grand Final week. And we're talking with Tawera Nikau, who was a part of that Melbourne Storm side in 1999. Interesting from a psychological point of view, Tawera. Do you suddenly get a little nervous? Do you suddenly, you get out of bed, you make sure you don't stub your toes, you brush your teeth, you don't want to drop the shaving cream? You know what I mean? Are you suddenly a little nervous knowing that you're just one injury away from missing possibly the biggest game of your life?
Yeah, no, that's definitely, Andrew. Guys are on tenterhooks. They're nervous. They're watching everything they do and eat and stuff like that. So, Yeah, that starts to play a part in it. Some of them start second-guessing themselves, or, funny stories of guys leaving their boots behind grand final day at a hotel. Things like that on the way to the game. It's those little intricacies that can really put the pressure onto you come game day when you're playing. So, over the years, been lots of different stories. But I think if you're prepared, if you've done that throughout the season, just really going through your game, whether it's on attack, your visualisation, going through the game, replaying it, all that sort of stuff that's the exciting part of rugby league. Getting to this time of the year, it's a great time to be playing football, semi-final, final football time, and these are the games that you train for all year with your teammates. You put in all that hard graft to get to stand on that stage and go out there and compete in the biggest day of the season.
So, I mean, it's one thing to get through the week. If we talk a little now about match day, and we will, before 10 o'clock, we will talk about this year's grand final. But on match day now, how different is this? I mean, I assume that you're staying in a hotel. Is it the same sort of a pattern for you as a regular season game in terms of the time you leave, get to the ground, etc.?
Yes, all depends where you are and the rest of the guys. I know back in those days some of the Sydney teams would travel with their families or, to the game sometimes. But grand final day, as you said, for us at Melbourne, I'm recounting back, we're all at the hotel. We had our normal breakfast routine, then we'd go for the team walk. Then we'd have a captain's chat after the team walk. Then everyone would have free time. Everyone was different how they prepared, Andrew. Everyone had a different process. Everyone had a different preparation. Some would sleep, some would watch movies, some would play, Xbox games. Everyone was different. So in terms of that, it was really just getting the guys to really focus on what worked well for themselves. And there was no one fits all.
Yeah, and that must be important, and I guess that's more from a coaching and a management perspective, that they've got to get that right, haven't they? They've got to appreciate that players need to be left to their own devices and do what works for them.
Oh, yeah, I played with guys that were playing big games, will go out in semi-finals and they're cracking jokes and laughing and playing tricks and the changing shirt on you before they're going out.
Yeah.
That's how they prepared, that's how they were comfortable. For me, it was basically just going through the game in my mind, understanding, what was I doing in the first set of six, what was I going to do in attack, what was I doing in defence, just replaying that. So when it happened in the game, bang, you were there. It was happening. You'd already rehearsed it and you were doing what you were doing. So, everyone was different. So that balance is very important. And throughout the year, you get to know who your players are, how your players operate and what motivates them. Some might need a tap on the shoulder, some might need a look or a wink, some others you might have to rev them up. I've seen guys when I first started playing banging their heads on the wall before they ran out on the field. So everyone's different.
Now, I mean, you were always a high-octane player. You always were high energy, physicality. But gee, in that 99 grand final, you were largely credited with leading that second half comeback. And I'd be fascinated to know, and I'm not sure that you might be able to answer it, Tawera. It might just be instinctive, it might just come naturally, I don't know. But how do you get yourself into that space? How do you get yourself into a position on the biggest day in your football playing life to have the biggest game of your life? What did you do to prepare?
Yeah, I suppose a part of that, when I think back about it, and I've been asked this question many times, Andrew, in terms of what did you take at half-time? And you came out because you must have had some raw meat because you were just trying to, smash everyone. But it was really interesting. I remember walking off the field at half-time, and I was all right on the far side, and I had to walk down across the field to the tunnel. And I remember looking up at the clock, and it was gone 59 seconds, 40 minutes. I thought, holy shit, that 40 minutes had just flown by. And, in the first half, we had no ball, we didn't have momentum, we couldn't play our normal game. And I remember walking up the tunnel back into the changing sheds. I was last. I came right across the other side of the field, and I thought to myself, shit, mate, I've only got 40 minutes. I've got to do something. And I got into the changing shed, and I sat down, and Steve Kearney was sitting next to me, and I turned to Steve, and I said, Steve, mate, we've got to go out there and just rip in the second half. And it sort of just changed the momentum. Steve jumped on board, and both of us started getting a bit of momentum. We had a bit of ball. We started, getting some momentum, and our defence was working better. And it just started to flow our way. And in those big games, and I don't know if you saw it last week with the South and Manly, South jumped out to a massive start.
Yeah.
And they, their momentum from the start was huge. But, as Manly got into the game and they got a bit of ball, the momentum swung back towards Manly, and they just kept riding that momentum right to the end of the game. And Souths were gone. The pressure, everything else, they started making silly errors, stuff they hadn't done. So if you can get some momentum in the game, you can really believe in yourself. It doesn't take much on the weight of everyone else jumping on it and the way you'll go.
And it is true, isn't it? And I've only ever played in one football match where this was the case for me, and incredibly, we were 4-0 down in a game of football. This wasn't high-level stuff, Tawera. This was over 30s. But we were 4-0 down in a cup semi-final, and it was weird. The team never felt like we were out of it. We came back and won 5-4. But Manly had that, didn't they? They had that belief. They're 16-0 down. I think it was 16-0. But they never looked like a team that was in panic mode.
No, that's exactly right. And it comes with a big experience. It comes with having good people. Good leaders in your team, guys that have been there before. If they stick to the game plan, because momentum does swing in games. If you had all the ball, it'll come back, it'll swing back, and it always ends up. If you look at all the stats for the games, it'll end up pretty close, pretty even. So you'll get a shift in momentum, but if you can get on the back of that, it makes a huge difference.
Tawera Nikau is our guest on the Hyundai High Performance Hour. If you've got a question for the man known as T, then send us a text, 5009. When we come back, we'll have a look at this weekend's NRL Grand Final and still a question or two about how the players prepare and make sure they're in the right frame of mind to take on the biggest game of their careers.
Aero Park's special deal this month, just $5 a day for 6 days or more. Aero Parks gives you personalised service with secure allocated parking on Tarsiel, minutes from the airport, and a luxury shuttle delivers you direct to the terminal free. $5 a day for 6 days or more all this month. Drive in, take off. aeroparks.co.nz. That's aeroparks.co.nz.
Hi, Paul from Shawmount. Shawmount still have the best range of brackets and prices available in New Zealand. We simply cannot be beaten on the range and the pricing of LED, projector, plasma or LCD mounts. We've got brackets from 19-inch TVs through to 75-inch TVs in stock. Shawmount is a locally owned company. All advice on mounting your LED, plasma and projector is simply a phone call away. Shawmount.co.nz. Shawmount.co.nz. You can be sure if it's Shawmount.
We're racing now with this week's Mad Butcher specials.
G'day, your old mate, the Mad Butcher, racing to all Mad Butcher stores this week for fresh Tegel chicken drumsticks, thighs and wings, all just $4.99 a kilo. And boneless, skinless chicken breast fillets, only $10.99 a kilo. And don't forget chicken drumsticks, thighs and wings, all just $4.99 a kilo. That's right, just $4.99 a kilo. Mad Butcher, best price, best quality, our aim since 1971.
TNT Express and Radio Sport presents the 2013 NRL Grand Final. Sunday night at 9, live from Stadium Australia. The Sydney City Roosters and the Manly Sea Eagles meet to decide who will be crowned the best in the game. Jamie Lyon, Michael Jennings, the Stewart brothers, James Maloney, Anthony Watnow and Sonny Bill Williams. NRL Grand Final. Roosters, Sea Eagles, live and free on Radio Sport. The Hyundai High Performance Hour, proudly brought to you by Hyundai New Zealand.
It is 15 minutes away from 10. We're talking with Tawera Nikau about his experiences in an NRL Grand Final, but also just in big championship finals. Text message coming through for you, Tawera, trying to compare playing at Wembley or playing in an NRL Grand Final. Which was the bigger atmosphere?
Oh, probably that's a hard one. The atmosphere for the NRL Grand Final was probably 108,000, but I played at Wembley in the Challenge Cup final against Wigan in 1990-91, and it was sounded like 150,000 people. There was about 90,000 there, but it was a fantastic stadium. So NRL Sydney Grand Final in 1999, big atmosphere.
So this weekend, the two teams, Manly with all that experience, they know how to win finals football matches, but the Roosters have got that momentum. They've got arguably, they've got the bigger big game players? I mean, you talked already about the likes of Sonny Bill, but this is a hard one to pick, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is, mate. It comes down to on the day who wants it the most. I think, we've seen Manly tough it out over the last couple of weeks. The Roosters, I think with, Jared Warrior-Hargraves, I don't know if you watched him when he came back last week, but, mate, he added another dimension, just gives them so much power up front. Sonny Bill, obviously the X factor, but, there's all over the park when you look at the Roosters, you've got Minicello and you've got Jennings in one centre, you've got Kenny Down and Tuivasa Sheck. So, both teams, and if you look at Manly, the Stewart brothers have been outstanding. Steve Matai, the enforcer in the NRL currently at the moment. But you look at their forward pack too, and if you go to the two halves from each of both teams, not only this time last year, what was he doing? He didn't even play the last game for the Warriors. This year he's gone on to play State of Origin, grand finals, consistently playing at their top level. So, Maloney and Pearce, Origin halves, and then you've got Kieran Foran and Daly Cherry-Evans, all internationals. So when you're looking, potentially internationals, look at that, mate. It's a mouth-watering fixture. But I think Manly might just have them if the momentum. They can get on the back of some good momentum. I think Manly might edge them out. It's going to be closer.
What do you make of both teams? There are stories around both teams at the moment. Of course, Cordner, the back rower for the Roosters, talk that he might come into consideration. He's been out for some time with injury, but also I heard today that Joe Nullavow apparently might feature on the bench for Manly, and he's virtually not played all year. What do you make of those stories in grand final week? Can they end up in tears? Either of those situations?
Yeah, they can. I think it's interesting if you're someone hasn't played for a few weeks. Corden, I think he's been out for 6 or 7 weeks with a broken ankle or something. So do you put him back in and he breaks down, same as Nullavow. So it's interesting. It's interesting how you do that, and those are the tough decisions that the coaches have to make and how they live by. And I know Tuvey a couple of weeks ago there was some talk about Brett Stewart's snake blowing up because he didn't play him in the game the other week or something in Sydney.
He had a hamstring, I think, didn't he?
He wasn't too happy or something. But he did it for the right reasons and for the team. And I think if you look at the coach, Trent Robinson, he had a stellar year. I think he got Daly M Rookie Coach of the Year this year, Robinson from the Roosters, minor premiership, grand final. So pretty hard to beat that in his first year. So obviously, it's a decision that'll come down to the coach, and I think they'll make the best decision in the interest of the team and the club.
Tawera, you talk about momentum, and you believe Manly will win if they do get the momentum swing and shift in the game. But where do you think the game will actually be won? Do you think the Roosters forward pack will be maybe too big, too strong?
Well, it's going to be really interesting because they have got a big pack, and grand finals football, it's all on defence. Defence wins finals, defence wins the grand final. So the team with the best defence should win. But if you look at the forward pack, I think the Roosters might just have an edge in terms of their forwards. We've seen their rotation. Warrior-Hargraves, you've got Sam Moore in there. They've got some good back rows. O'Donnell is another one that's had some big-time experience. They're talking, he never played last week for the Roosters, and I think he was injured. But he looks like he'll be coming back in for State of Origin and also Aussie rep. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough one. The forwards, in terms of I think the Roosters do have a bigger pack, and they might have, obviously, with Sonny Bill in there also. Frank Paul Nuasala, so there's quite a few Kiwis, but I just think the grit and the grinding out of Manly, and if you've got some really good halves in the likes of Daly Cherry-Evans and Kieran Foran with their kicking games, those guys are outstanding. I just can't wait for the game Sunday.
Do coaches have to look out for players changing in their profile and their behaviour in the days leading up? And in fact, have you seen it yourself in your top-level rugby league career? Have you seen players noticeably change going into a big game, and that might be a sign that they're not coping with the pressure?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Andrew, because, I know going into the grand final, there was a couple of young guys that thought they were, oh man, this was so easy. You know what I mean? I'm going to have another grand final. I've seen that before, where players have thought, I've got to my first grand final at a young age, and they never have another one again. You know what I mean? So it's really interesting to see, not so much the way they change, but I suppose the expectation that comes with it, Andrew, in terms of playing at that level, because once you get to that level and if you're playing in the grand final, I've played with some great players that never played in a grand final. You know, the likes of won a grand final. They played in a couple, but never won one. The likes of Andrew Eddinghausen at Cronulla and guys like that. All he wanted to do, Les Davidson was another guy that I played with. Probably two of the best players that I've ever played with, but never ever had the opportunity to win a grand final. So when you think about that and some of the younger guys that are coming through, it's really interesting how they project themselves, I suppose, up to that week and afterwards to some degree.
We're talking with Tawera Nikau. A couple of questions on text here. Was Anthony Minicello in that team with you in 99, Tawera?
99, no. Mini was playing. He played for the Roosters in 99. We played them in elimination semi-final, the Roosters, in 98, 99. But he wasn't in the Melbourne Storm team. Minicello played for the Roosters.
Yep.
Yeah.
And another question here, and this is, I guess, asking you for an opinion on this. The New Zealand media has raved about SBW all season, yet he fails to get into the NRL team of the season. Who has got it all wrong?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, I'm not too sure if he made the Daily Game. He doesn't make the Daily Game team of the year, did he?
I'm assuming he did. I'll have to double check. I'm assuming he didn't, based on that text.
Well, I think he should have been. He's been a standout all year. For someone to come back into the game, I don't think there's been a better second rower in the game this year.
He's the real deal, isn't he?
Oh, mate, to go from rugby union to come back to rugby league and perform at the level. But it's interesting because I know Sonny and spoken to him a couple of times. There was some comments halfway through the year or in the later stages how he thought the game had gone so quick now and it was actually more damaging than what it used to be in terms of the speed and the collision compared to rugby. And I know that there were some comments around him, saying far out the game is just so quicker and so faster than what it used to be. So it's interesting that he'd say that, but he certainly is a one-off, and not too many people could do what he's done in the game.
We're talking with Tawera Nikau. Back in a moment to wrap things up on the Hyundai High Performance Hour. You can still get your questions through on text 5009 as we look ahead to the NRL Grand Final.
From Swanson, Lincoln, Rent-A-Car to Henderson, Herne Bay, Browns Bay, Rent-A-Ute to Mission Bay, Milford, Chatswood, Rent-A-Truck to Whitford, Red Hill, Pine Hill, Rent-A-Van to Coatesville.
53 years ago, Sterling Moss won the New Zealand Grand Prix at Ardmore, and Metropolitan Rentals were already helping Aucklanders get around. Since then, they've helped 25,000 sports teams get to the game, 100,000 local businesses move their goods, and over 300,000 Aucklanders ship house. Metropolitan Rentals, still on Dominion Road, still the best.
There's something sitting in the corner of the office that's holding your company back. And it's not Mavis and accounts. It's your old PABX phone system. Yep, that thing. The thing your entire business relies on. The thing that needs engineers and upgrades just to give you extra extensions. Costing you a fortune. Retire it right now and get a cloud-based PBX from Digital Island. Virtual, reliable, limitless and affordable. Visit digitalisland.co.nz and lift your company into the cloud.
IRL Pipes bring you the finest pipes from around the world.
The Banzai Pipeline, or Pipeline as it's known, the world-famous surf break in Hawaii, home to the Billabong Pipeline Masters, the final event of the ASP World Tour. Notable surfers to earn their reputation at Pipeline include world champion Sonny Garcia and Kelly Slater.
IRL Pipes can't surf, but they are the experts in installing industrial piping. Visit irlpipes.co.nz.
The only thing better than one award-winning Schofield Service Centre is two. And that's just what Schofield's offer. Award-winning service at two convenient locations, Newmarket and Botany. Factory-trained technicians deliver authorised service for Holden, HSV, Nissan, Saab, Hummer and Skoda. They handle full repairs and servicing including warranty fitness, tyres and wheel alignment. Schofield Service Centres. Book online today at schofield.co.nz.
The Hyundai High Performance Hour with Andrew Dewhurst. Proudly brought to you by Hyundai New Zealand.
Yeah, welcome into the show. Our guest on the show tonight is a former Kiwi, former NRL Grand Final winner with the Melbourne Storm, Tawera Nikau, as we wrap things up on the show and look ahead to what promises to be, a wonderful, wonderful game. We'll have it, of course, live for you on the weekend here on Radio Sport. So which way does it go? I think you probably hinted the Roosters have the opportunity if they play up to their ability, if the forward pack can dominate, but it sounds to me like you've already mentioned Manly and that experience, that they could get up and win this thing.
Yeah, I'm just leaning towards Manly slightly just because of the experience and the mental toughness. You know, they've got some really tough players, you know, the Stewart guys, Matai, you know, Cherry Evans and forward, been there, done that a couple of years ago. So I think they might just have an edge, but in saying that, you know, the X factor definitely belongs with the Roosters in terms of, you know, the players that they have. Sonny Bill, you know, Jennings is outstanding in that centre, you know, along with Tuivasa, Sheck, and from the backfield they can break you. An old young Tuko, someone that's been under the radar this year on the wing for the Roosters. If they put the bomb to the corner, no one can out-jump him. He's just too tall. He'll out-jump Williams and George Tafua, so, you know, they've got another weapon there. So, yeah, I'm just leaning towards the Manly team in a slim margin. What about you, Andrew? Who do you think and why?
I like Manly, and I do like it because of those the grizzled veterans, if you like, and the way that they came back against Souths. And as I say, there was just a look in their eyes that didn't matter. They were 14-0 down, I think it was. I said 16 earlier, but it didn't matter. They were calm, they were composed, they stuck to their pattern, and they've got a passionate coach as well that I think knows how to cope in these situations. They both have, of course. They're both superbly coached. But, yeah, I think Manly, and I think because of that experience factor.
What about you, James?
Mate, I'm going the opposite to you two boys, and not to be different, but I just think the Roosters have got the X factor. I think they'll dominate up front, and I think line breakers, you know, like SBW, Mitchell Pearce, the guy, I think they will. I think if they get their game going well, I think they could win comfortably.
Could be a classic. Hey, T, always good to catch up. Really appreciate it. You enjoy the game, and we'll look forward to catching up again.
Hey, no worries, boys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and no worries. Do you know what they're paying at the TAB?
Oh, mate.
You want to know what the odds are?
We'll find out after 10.
We'll sort that out, mate. You can put some on for us as well. Tawera Nikau, our guest. Really appreciate it. Geez, a knowledgeable fella. Really, really enjoy listening to him and his thoughts on not only the game this weekend, but just how he's coped in grand final situations. That is the Hyundai High Performance Hour. Remember to check the website, hph.co.nz. You can go through to our Facebook page, like the page, and answer our very simple quiz question. You could be a winner on the show.